is rough to watch.
次回予告。自分にはもう何もない。生きていく意味すら。そんな時、差し伸べられた手が志村天子の人生を一変させた。
This makes me think about you know that little girl, what's her name, Eri-chan? Her quirk is also quite dangerous, and that's why Eraserhead, he needs to be around her all the time because she can also easily end up hurting others.
魔王の後継誕生の瞬間。次回信楽戸村オリジン。縛られず恐れず己の中の衝動をさらに向こうへプルスウルトラ。
That makes me think of, like, you know, sometimes life just has these horrible tragedies that, you know, you can think of 1,000 different ways if you just didn't do this, if you just did that, how things could have turned out better. But sometimes horrible tragedies just happen, you know? And I don't know. To me, like, if I had to be honest, and I know people don't like, because, yeah, it's a heavy episode, because to most people there would be a clear, especially when you think about the conversations we had about Endeavor before. Unfortunately, there isn't a rewind button in real life. Seeing this, I'm once again glad there's no quirks in our world. Yeah, there's already so much. It's already so difficult managing life, managing our own trauma. With our own trauma, trying to raise kids and help others when we can barely help ourselves and blah, blah, blah. Everything's already so difficult. Mix quirks into that shit. And not just, you know, oh, cool, superpowers, but shit like this. Superpowers awakening at random times that could hurt others, which also gives, you know, a justification for people being afraid of quirks at first. You know, the people who are against quirks, or the people who want to, like, I can understand wanting rules. There has to be balance, of course, but I can also understand, you know, people who don't want to be like the Liberation Army, who says there should be no rules. Like, clearly, to some extent, there should be rules if you want to live. If you want to live in a society. But yeah, shit like this is very difficult, and you know, when the whole Endeavor thing happened, I was talking to a bunch of different people because, you know, of what some people said about what I said, and then I didn't like them twisting my words, so I talked to other people, and we had some others that were willing to share their story with us. So I feel like I want to share something about me as well, that I think is relevant here when we take a look at the parents in My Hero Academia. We know we have Deku's mom, we don't even know who Deku's dad is. He's also just gone. This guy who inflicted trauma on his kids because of the trauma he experienced. And Endeavor's mother, their whole relationship, how that affected the kids, and yada, yada, yada. And I remember talking to one person about, because I feel like, how can we discuss, or how do I say, because I know people are just going to be angry at the dad, and like rightfully so, you can be angry at the dad, but it makes me think of, you know, Endeavor, where everyone was just angry at Endeavor, and it makes me think of like my own situation when I was trying to explain that it's not as abuse, family fights, these things, it's not as easy to identify and solve as we would want it to be. People who do abuse others, it's not always like, oh, what a terrible person, just lock them up, blah blah blah. So often their abuse is rooted in their own trauma, and the family members do not want to just lock them up, or and anyway, the abusive part, or the bad part of, even if you want to say, is not the only part. So yeah, no one in this situation, I don't think, like, there's 100 different things that you think you can do better, but they're all dead. We can't blame anyone at this point. It's just a tragedy that happened, but I wouldn't say that it was any one person's fault. It was a shitty situation. Obviously the kids are not at fault. Even the little girl for lying is not at fault. Like, no one, when you're a child, you can't, it's like, how do you say? Well, you can say, if let's say things that everyone didn't die, you can be like, she shouldn't have lied, and this and that, and this is how the parents could approach them and talk to them. But now it went suddenly like everyone dead. So at this point, there's no real discussion of right and wrong, who did what, because it was a bunch of bad shit that led to bad shit that led to this. And I don't think that blame here will help anyone. At this point, all we can say is Shigaraki turned out how he did. And what he is now, who he is now, is not right. Sure, he doesn't care about his future. He said he has no future, so he doesn't care if destruction will have no future, because he doesn't want a future. But there are many of us who do want a future, So, whatever. I just want to share, like, from my own experience when it comes to parents and how difficult it is. Like, my mother had a pretty horrible childhood, where her mother cheated on her dad, and he turned to drinking, and, like, they were 7 or 8 kids, so it's not like their parents could, like, how these days children are hyper sensitized, or not, no, that's not the word, how to say that. Children are, like, very, very babied, because a lot of people grow up thinking, oh, I don't want my children to go through what I did, and so they kind of, everyone gets a participation trophy, there's this and that, blah, blah, blah. And, like, we almost overprotect sometimes our own children in the West, I guess. But anyway, I'm trying to say it was not like that with my mom, because I think that's good, the Western trying to baby children, but balance, like, you also have to, it's not too much, because it can definitely be too much, and that can lead to bad things as well. So now my mom, she went through that when she was younger, and now she grew up, she married my dad, and then they moved away from her family, away from the drama and everything, and my dad provided a really good life for her. He worked way too hard, he wasn't at home enough, but we never worried about, like, we weren't rich or anything, but we never worried about putting food on the table. Stuff like that. But then, when I was growing up, my mom did the same thing that her mom did. And, because she went through, like, there's stuff that I can't even bring up, and I don't want to bring up, that my mom went through when she was younger. But now, while I was growing up, she did the same thing that her mom did, and she, cheated on my dad. And I remember being, like, 4 or 5, and her taking me to, like, this other guy's house, and I would sit in the living room with, like, some juice and cookies and TV, and I don't know where they'd disappear off to, but that makes, it makes an impression on a child, right? So then I grew up resenting my mom, in a way, and I didn't respect her a lot, and I was quite rude to her, and a lot of grown-ups would talk really badly about me, because they'd see how rude I was to my mom, not knowing why, and they'd say really bad things about me being a bad kid. And that also made me really angry, and you can't tell them. And weird things end up slipping out. Like I remember, I think my dad knew about this other guy because I said, when are we going to his house again? And then, but I was small, like I didn't realize what I was doing, but maybe I did. Like Shigaraki said himself, he didn't realize, but now thinking back, maybe he did. And for me, it's the same. Maybe I didn't realize, but maybe I did. I don't know. So then, I grew up with my parents constantly in like, it was an absolute roller coaster, with times we're super in love, happy, and then other times where, oh my God, we're getting a divorce. It's screaming, it's banging doors, but my dad luckily did not turn out like my mom's dad, where he didn't turn to drinking or anything. He doesn't drink at all, actually, because funny enough, his dad was an alcoholic. He died, not drinking, but at work, because he was a train driver. He actually died on the train. My dad turned out the opposite of his dad, though. Not drinking at all. My dad's older brother turned out to be an alcoholic as well. Like, can you see how you can go through the same circumstances as someone else, and yet like, isn't life interesting like that? Anyway, so my mom ended up being with my dad still until I left the house, but it was like up and down, and up until when I was 18, and I wrote them a letter, and I was like, can you guys please divorce or separate, because I literally cannot deal with the way things have been going for the last 18 years. Like, it feels literally like you're splitting in two half the time, being an only child, and then parents are happy, and then they're like divorcing, and then they're happy, and then they're divorcing, and then they're happy, and then they're divorcing. And like, with all the resentment that I built up with my mom, we constantly fought. I didn't really know my dad all that well because he was always working. So like, you just can imagine the toxicity of this relationship, this whole situation. Up until the point where I asked him to separate. My dad, obviously, he was really disappointed in me because he was the kind of person that always wanted to make it work. But I could see what that was doing to them. But anyway, so he stuck with my mom. I was, once again, the bad guy. And then I went off to university because I just wanted to get out. When I left, that's when my mom started, like, really cheating on my dad. Like if it was happening before, but now it was like more serious. And sometimes she would visit me, and I would like find out on her phone she's talking to this guy or that guy or whatever. And then I realized, and I would continually tell her, like, you have to stop, and I would fight with her, and she would delete the number. Oh my God. I'm getting to a point, trust me, this is all like backstory that's necessary for one thing. And then when I was 21, I finally told my mom, listen, I'm sick of this now. You're still talking to this guy. You keep saying you're going to delete his number, but you never do. If you're not gonna leave dad or leave this guy because you can't be on with both, I'm going to tell my dad, because I don't really know what that would have done anyway, because he had never left her before because of cheating. But anyway, so then she decided, okay, she's going to leave my dad, and then she leaves him. I dig all the backstories we're getting today. Yeah. So then she leaves my dad, and I tell her, you know what, you made your decision. I will love and support you no matter what, because I didn't grow up with my dad, so it's not like I in my mind I blamed him as well, more in many cases, because he was never at home, right? But at that time I didn't realize like he was providing for us. But okay, we'll get to that part. So then she leaves my dad. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I support you as long as you're happy, as long as you made this decision and you stick to it. Meanwhile, I don't know that my mom, for the next 2 years, is going between the two of them. When she's fighting with the boyfriend, she goes to my dad. When she's fighting with my dad, she goes to the boyfriend. And then I moved back home because my dad is doing really bad. Many people, like, from my town texted me, like, he's like really skinny, he's not eating, he's overworking himself, blah blah blah. And at this time I was just finishing off with my college, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna move back home, I'm gonna work there, gonna be with my dad, whatever. My dad also told me to come back. Then my dad ends up using me to guilt my mom into coming back. So that's really the only reason why he really wanted me around, it seemed. And it kind of worked. So she came back once or twice and left, and came back once or twice and left. And I kept for a long time just telling her, you know, okay, this is the last time you made your decision. Just now stick with it. I support you as long as you're happy. Blah, 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 blah. And this is a horrible situation, obviously. Very confusing. And I try and move away to Durban. I get a job here. I lose my job after a few months. Have to move back in with my dad. At that time, my mom isn't there. That's when I start YouTube. Great. For that year, my mom came back once or twice. But I wouldn't say it was... Me and my dad obviously fought a lot because I kept telling him, like, she's going to do the same thing. And he's like, no, she's going to change. I feel sorry for her. She has this bad childhood. And, you know, we're married. You can't give up on that. And I can't take it anymore. I just save up my money and eventually I leave. And now I live here. Okay, great. Now... Oh, but let me just say, during that time, one time my mom came back, she blamed me, telling me I don't make her feel welcome and that's why she doesn't come back. Take into account all the shit, my dad using me for leverage, my mom using me as a scapegoat. Oh, you're the reason I'm not coming back because you don't make me feel welcome, even though for the most part, up until the last 3 or 4 times, I've been saying, as long as you're happy, I support you. But now, during all of this, I get to know my dad better because now I'm living with him. And I realized, you know, how hard he's worked and yada, yada, yada. I realized, like, I'm a lot like my dad as well. Okay. Fast forward until now. And this is the part where I wanted to get to. And this is kind of not the best part to talk about now because it's happening now. But whatever, you know, in light of this really great story that handles these really difficult topics, I want to be open and honest. So, now what's happening is my mom is with my dad. Her boyfriend, like, blocked her. Her ex-boyfriend. He blocked her. He's got a new girlfriend. He's finally moved on. Thank God. Someone is out of this crazy mess. He was really a nice guy. You know, whatever. Think about this, guys. Think about this. During that first year of COVID, my mom's boyfriend was like a tour guide, and he used to get like clients from overseas. So when no one could travel, he couldn't make money. My mom would come to my dad asking him for money, and he'd give her his card. She'd go and buy food for my dad's house, but also food for them. And my dad was just fine with that. Okay. He wasn't fine with it. I'm sure it hurt him, but he was just like, he just feels sorry for my mom and blah, 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 blah. Anyway. Present time. Now my mom doesn't have a choice. Her ex-boyfriend blocked her. She has to stay with my dad, right? And now my dad tells me, you know, for the last few months that she's been with him since Christmas. It's been like almost a year now. Maybe like 9 months. What are we in? September? 9 months, okay? My mom has always been an emotional roller coaster. Hormones, everything, whatever. But suddenly, for the last couple of maybe the last 2 years, she's gotten it into her head that she is bipolar. And, but she's never had any being emotional and up and down doesn't, and doing bad things because of your trauma doesn't make you bipolar. Okay, but right. But now my mom got medication from somewhere, but I don't know where the fuck she got this medication from. And now, for example, 2 days ago, my mom calls me up at 4 in the morning, 4:30, I don't know, crying, sobbing. Can't understand what she says. Because my dad is making her feel so bad and so guilty, and he's so horrible to her. And I know that's absolute bullshit, because she said bad things about me as well when I've been, for the most part of all this shit, been supporting her and telling her, you know, I love you and I just want you to get help and just make your decision and be with someone and go, because it's not like she couldn't afford to go to a psychologist or someone during all of this, because she had her boyfriend before COVID who was doing pretty well. My dad, who was willing to pay for her to go to a psychologist. But now, so I know that she's lying, but I'm trying to calm her down, and I've already made an appointment for her. Finally, I'm forcing her to go. I'm not forcing her because I can't force her, but I've made the appointment for her to go to a psychologist only on 4 October. Because my dad has told me that there are times when she literally like turns into a different person and she's screaming like a banshee at him about things that make no sense. But I think it's because she's feeling guilty. It's like I said, her own trauma, that bad decisions that she's made because of her childhood has led to her feeling guilty. And now, because of her guilt, she makes bad decisions now. For example, like in the how many years that my parents were separated, my dad didn't date anyone else. He was always waiting. His home was always open for her to come anytime. He didn't date anyone. But now, whenever my dad talks to like one woman that she knows that she doesn't like, now she's screaming at my dad, saying he's cheating on her, and da-da-da-da. And like, to the point where my dad was trying to film her one time where she was like hitting him. He was trying to film her. He told me the story, and he was laughing but almost crying because the camera was on him instead of her. And like, but then she goes and she hides in the cupboard and closes. Like she afterwards she goes hide in the cupboard in the dark, or under the covers in the bed, and then afterwards she doesn't remember anything apparently. But this is not something that has always happened. This is, I don't know if you can develop bipolar disorder later in your life. I don't know if the medication is what's doing it, because she keeps blaming my dad that he doesn't want to put her on his medical aid because she left and then he took her off the medical aid, and then she was on the other guy's medical aid, and now he took her off his medical aid. Now she wants to get back on my dad's medical aid because she's stressed out because she gets headaches and this and that. But my dad can't put her on his medical aid. She blames him, saying he doesn't want her to go on the medical aid. She makes up these lies, but he can't put her on the medical aid because they need a declaration of why she's on the medication and what medication it is, but she doesn't write the letter about the medication. But now she's blaming my dad. And I don't know, can you develop bipolar later? Is this the medication that's doing it? What is it? Now, you understand the complications that comes with family drama. And you understand why I wasn't just willing, just because I saw one scene where Todoroki was being roughed up by his dad because he was way too intensive training, and the mom screaming and panicking, and then her throwing like boiling water in the child's face. You can understand why I don't think Endeavor is solely to blame the horrible man that needs to be, I don't know how much they want to punish him for what, blah, 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 blah. But you can understand where I'm coming from. And the same here, family situations are so crazy difficult, and especially when it comes to little kids, because up what we saw, I don't know if they censored something from the manga, so just take note, I haven't read the manga. But what we saw was him dragging the kid once, like by the, I don't even know, it wasn't like dragging him by his hair. But he was doing it, the mother even knew, she doesn't hate you, he just is worried about you. And we see why he's worried, because of the whole hero thing, because of the mother, his mother that left him, abandoned him. And that could be traumatic for a child, of course. But now, his trauma led to him being a bad parent. But do you understand why I don't think this is something that someone should be sent to prison over, or that someone needs to, you know how people went on about Endeavor being this horrible person and how he should be punished, and that's why I'm saying at least the man changed. And here, sadly, they didn't get the chance. They didn't get a chance to make right after all this. He clearly regretted it seemed to me the first time that he really lifted his hand against his child, right? Because yes, this kid was crying all the time, and he was he had some kind of, maybe the stress of home made him, what do you call it, worsened his anxiety, worsened his what do you call it, she called it allergies. That kind of stress can worsen allergic reactions, whatever. But that's not to say that, like, me as well, I remember half of my childhood, more than half of my childhood, I was crying in the bedroom. I couldn't have friends over at all. Well, not at all, but I could barely have friends over because my parents would always be fighting, and then I feel embarrassed and I go cry in the bedroom. Like, just because you have this childhood that you through, if you made like a mini movie out of my childhood, it might look horrible. It might. That's why I never make these big assumptions based on one episode where we get to explore the worst part of their childhood, and then, oh, Endeavor needs to go to fucking prison. Oh no, this father is the devil incarnate. Like, sometimes family situations suck, and yes, if it were better, obviously things would have turned out differently. But that's why I always say, a bad childhood, a sad backstory doesn't excuse these villains who they grow into, because just as easily, I'm pretty sure they could have given us a backstory to the dad and his abandonment issues and painted that in like also a horrible light, because that must have been really traumatic for a child, depending on the situation around it and if he even had anyone else and I don't know what. And he could have turned into a villain, but he didn't. He turned into a bad parent. But you understand my point? Like, these situations suck, but they're not as easy to just be like, you're the bad guy, you da 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 da. And I know, like, what annoys me is that people always tell me, when they don't like my opinion on something, they tell me, oh, it's not that black and white. Stop thinking of things as if it's black and white. And I'm like, I'm not. I don't think things are black and white, but I do think that there is a right and a wrong, and that we have to talk about it. What do I always say? It's like this goodness and badness scale. The thing is, it's not like black and white, but there is a point where bad becomes too bad and good becomes... Well, I don't know about too good, but you understand what I'm saying. We have to be able to say or discuss the level of severity of what happens. You know, yes, Shigaraki has a sad backstory, but that doesn't make up for his current actions. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know why people always tell me things aren't black and white. Because I've never ever looked at things as black and white. I've just looked at things as, well, in my opinion, this is a horrible thing to do, and so in my opinion they're bad. It's not redeemable. You know, some people do things that's just not redeemable after a certain point. And it just frustrates me so much when people, they get so like worked up because of a sad backstory in favor of the villain. And I'm not saying anyone is doing that about Shigaraki at all. I haven't really talked to anyone about Shigaraki, but I'm just anticipating it maybe, or discussing it in light of other characters with like similar backstories, but that also end up doing horrible things in the present, which is what Shigaraki is doing. You know what I'm saying? I think it was the first time since the mother stepped in and said she won't follow rules if he hits the kids one more time. Exactly. Like, that was a really good way to handle it. And like, she's aware they didn't choose the father's side, but they understood where the father was coming from, and up until the point where he hit the kid, they understood the point where the father was coming from. And I mean, he was a good father. He provided a whole house for them. He let his in-laws live with them. You know what I'm saying? That's a good dad. Fairly good. But then he took it too far. He hit the kid, and the mother was not okay with that. And she was like, you know, if you're going to do this again, I'm out. Which is great. But for a child, all of that is so much worse in their head. And that's why I can understand why he had a traumatic childhood. And oh my God, because of his quirk, things turned out so much worse than they needed to. But in truth, most kids have parents that are crazy and that make you go through hell as a child. But that doesn't give you the right to turn into a shitty adult. Just like his dad shouldn't have. But the thing is, he was not a great parent. I'm talking about before he hit the kid. But he still wasn't the worst either. Like, I've seen parents. You know what? But that's what I'm trying to say here. He was not the best parent, and I'm talking about before he hit the kid. But even me, I was 16 when my mom slapped me. But even what he did, like telling him, no, you can't be a hero. Because in essence, he had his son's best interest at heart. So it's very nuanced. And yes, sometimes for children, being like, I drew on the wall one time. My dad shouted at me. He never hit me, but he shouted at me, telling me if I ever do that again. To me, I was like so traumatized. I never did anything naughty until I was like freaking 14, 15. This was when I was like 4 or 5. For the next 10 years, I never did anything bad because I was so scared. But I mean, he just shouted at me. He didn't hit me or anything. He was just like, But for kids, the smallest little scary thing is like, I mean, in a kid's mind, they can be in bed and think that there are monsters under the bed because in a child's mind, they're like creative and it can go overboard. So that's why I say we have to listen to children, yes. But like that person who was trying to justify something they said based on the words of a child, I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't. Family drama is more complicated than it looks from an outside perspective. Yes, there's always there's a line that you're gonna draw somewhere, right? If you see a woman getting to work every day, and she has, a blue eye, she has bruises on her arms, like there's a line where this person, it's not about you anymore. Because for my dad, at this point, I feel like it's absolute emotional abuse having to be with my mom, but he loves her. So I can't forcibly separate them. My dad is with her. He chose to be with her. And like, I'm not gonna, for emotional abuse, send my mom to freaking prison or whatever. So in each family, that's what I was trying to say during the Endeavor arc thing. It's their family's choice whether they want him to go to jail or not. If they took it to the law and they charged him, maybe things would have turned out differently, although I don't really think it would, since the mom might get in more trouble for burning her son's face with boiling water. You know what I'm saying? These situations are very complicated, and there are times when we draw the line, and that is the thing. After Endeavor saw what his actions were leading to, she was worried for her child. His child was constantly crying. The mom flipped out, poured boiling water on her son's face. When he saw what was happening, he stopped. And that is the only thing we can really ask for. It is a complicated genetic plus environment relationship that is still being researched. Well, just to finalize that discussion, my mom does have an appointment for 4 October. I'm a little stressed out because it's so long. And I can't make a second appointment until after the first appointment. But my dad loves my mom a lot. I love my mom a lot. We do excuse her behavior because she does have a traumatic childhood. She does have a bad childhood that she seems to be repeating. But yeah, obviously things can't go on like this, but she is going to go to a psychologist and we'll see what happens. I don't think a psychologist can diagnose something like that. But at the end of the day, me and my dad want her to seek help. And that is what Endeavor did as well. He booked his wife into a place that could help her. He stopped doing what he was doing that put her there in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Family situations can be so difficult. Yeah, I'll see what happens closer to the time. But I think my mom will be able to go because, I don't know. I can only know when she goes or not. Even if they put such a high-ranking hero's reputation in the mud, that would probably be looked down on by some. Yeah, we talked about it back then and said, you know, since he stopped, he didn't perpetuate the behavior, he didn't continue, I mean, taking him out of his work would only end up in more people getting hurt. You know, he saves people every single day. If he had to go fight a bunch of court battles for weeks on end, you know how many people would get hurt in that time? And since he stopped, that's why I just think that since they didn't take him to the... He helped his wife, he got her where he even now is offering to build a separate house for his family. Like, that's why I don't understand why people are still mad. They can still be mad at Endeavor. I just don't understand the absolute hate. As if he isn't doing everything he can to make up for what he did. It's not like anyone is saying he didn't do anything wrong. He acknowledges that he did. He's trying to make up for it. He's not even asking for forgiveness. He just wants to spend the rest of his life making up for it. So I don't just understand how people can hate him as much as they do. But whatever. But yeah, I love the story for how in depth it goes in these very difficult situations. And I'm sure the manga goes more in depth. I will read it eventually. I'm only up to Deku versus Bakugo. But what I loved about this episode is how, another interesting topic that we can talk about, is how Redestro said the quirk influences the personality, which is, that's what I wanted to do. I want to go to my Hero Academia notes because I was wondering the same thing for a long time. I thought the same thing. So I don't know when I wrote this, but it was maybe during season 2, while I was reading the manga at the time. Theory: your quirk directly influences your personality type / disposition. So I took a look at the main cast and saw where is it a yes, where is it a no, where is it a maybe. So Aoyama's quirk is like a flash quirk, and he is literally a flashy person. Tsuyu has a frog quirk, and she's literally a froggy person. Ida is really fast, and maybe, you know, the way that he talks and everything is due to his quirk. Uraraka, light and bubbly, her personality seems to be influenced by her quirk. Denki's personality seems to be influenced by his quirk. Kirishima's personality, Koji's personality seems to be influenced by their quirk. Jiro, Tokoyami, Todoroki, maybe. And then Bakugo. Bakugo was my main reason for coming up with this theory in the first place, because I think that obviously, this is the part that I wanted to read. I don't want to excuse anyone's behavior, including Bakugo's behavior, just because I think their personality is influenced by their quirk. So let me read this. I believe that just like your environment and your genes, nature and nurture, can influence or shape you as a person's quirk in the My Hero Academia world also shapes their disposition. Therefore, Bakugo's brazen personality would partly be as a result of his quirk. This could be true, especially for more potent or strong quirks. You know, I don't know how to explain that. For example, how Tokoyami's quirk makes him a dark and mysterious person, Bakugo's quirk makes his personality explosive. It could, or a short fuse, essentially. It could be that certain types of quirks are more likely to influence a person depending on the type or how much they use their quirk as a part of their everyday lives. To be honest, I don't think, since we found out they are not really allowed to use their quirk in their daily lives, that's pretty much out of the question. But depending on the type of quirk, it could definitely influence their personality. To be honest, I don't even think of this so much as a theory. It's almost obvious to me that your quirk will somehow shape you, in the same way that our talents in life have a hand in shaping us. For example, being very athletic exposes you to certain kinds of environments, people, and situations in life, which directly shape who you are. Koji is also a good example. His quirk is Voice, which has, over time, combined with other influences I'm sure, made it so that he is close with animals. Being a person close to nature, more in touch with animals than he has been with people, has resulted in a shy and quiet disposition, despite his powerful, brutish appearance, as he is described on his fandom page. The reason I'm so interested in this is because I'm curious to understand Bakugo and what makes him who he is. It's not that I condone all of his behavior or that I'm trying to excuse his behavior because of his quirk. I want to make that clear. But I like him because he has a lot of depth as a character and potential as both a character and a hero. I like him because he doesn't pretend to be something he's not. He has a goal to be a strong hero and take out the bad guys, although he doesn't always go about it in the right way. But that is what I'm here to understand. Generally, I love characters with a strong sense of right and wrong, but with Bakugo, it's refreshing to see a hero who's not perfect from the get-go, but in terms of not just he's not strong, he's more than strong enough, but it's nice to see for a change, because a lot of shonen starts off with a weak hero and then gets strong over time. Bakugo is different because he's really strong, but he's definitely not the hero type in terms of personality. So it's refreshing to see a hero who's not perfect from the get-go. Strong enough, but not perfect in terms of personality, but he looks up to someone like All Might, so clearly he wants to better himself and be a great hero. Most shonen, like, okay, I just said the same thing, but I'm going to read it again. Most shonen anime have an MC that starts out really weak, but their ideals are strong, and as the story progresses, they become physically stronger. I've just seen that too many times and it's gotten a bit boring. Contrarily, Bakugo actually starts out really strong, so strong in fact that he looks down on others. This unconventional wannabe hero has a lot to learn from before going professional. He stands out to me because of this difference. Is he perfect? Of course not. A perfect character would be boring in any story. Perfect people don't exist, so why would a perfect character? I'm curious about what shaped Bakugo to be the person he is, and I'm looking forward to see him become the hero he was meant to be. A huge portion of his personality also, I think, is shaped by his mother and how his mother responds to his big-headedness. I don't think she dealt with that in the best way either, but that doesn't make her a bad parent. I just disagree with how she handled it because he seems to be mirroring a lot of her behavior. For the rest of this Google Doc, I will be sharing screenshots from the manga accompanied by my comments. It won't be a character study solely on Bakugo, but I'm sure my commentary will often include him. The goal of the notes is just to share things that stood out to me while reading the manga and highlight particular scenes that I want to remember. So here's just some nature versus nurture reading, because I think that's a very interesting topic. And then there's a quote here from a show that I don't want to say because it's a spoiler, but it basically says, according to research in behavioral genetics, the effects of gene and the environment are about equal. Oh, so that's not a spoiler. But I think this is a very interesting topic. Ralph says, also, I saw a very good video lately viewing where Deku might go, comparing him to Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man in a way that made sense and felt refreshing. I actually think that it's quite obvious to me that My Hero Academia, as a Japanese author, where the Japanese community, the Japanese culture is very different from Western culture. But it seems to me that My Hero Academia, the author, takes a lot of inspiration from Western culture's hero stories, like, you know, Spider-Man, Batman, and all the like. And that is why I heard that a lot of parents don't like My Hero Academia for their kids because it does things differently than some other shonen where it actually paints the bad guys in a good light or almost sympathizes with bad guys. I don't know. I didn't read all the way into that. But I heard that some parents in Japan don't like it because it seems to promote something that is not in alignment with their culture. I don't know. Do you think it would be possible for a specific quirk to manifest depending on an individual's already existing personality? Or is it only a one-way road where the quirk will be random, but then the personality will change accordingly? It's kind of like that thing here. According to research in behavioral genetics, the effects of genes and the environment are about equal. So it's a 50-50. It could be that, oopsies. It could be that like, who said it? Wait. Juno was someone was talking about my mom and bipolar and how your genes can be predisposed to a certain issue. So maybe you're like, because a lot of kids are born with a quirk as a combination of their parents. But it doesn't seem like Shigaraki's quirk was really so it could be the flip of a coin. If his parents had really strong quirks, that could have been it could manifest in the child, and that would be more nature. But in his case, I would say it's more nurture because of how extremely he reacted to his environment. You know what I'm saying? Like the quote says, nature and nurture can be 50-50, but depending on how strong his nature is or how strong the environment around him is, how extreme it is, so not strong but extreme, it could tip one way or the other. So I don't think that there's one answer. Your quirk is going to manifest definitely based on your parents, because some genes are stronger than others, right? And so you could get your parents' quirk, but in this case, it seems like it went the other way, where he already had this desire this anger, this constant anger, where he didn't want to be there. He hated his dad, whatever. And that could have led to that specific quirk manifesting as well. It's subverting the classic good versus evil dynamic on a bunch of levels, so I kind of get it. I actually don't think that there has ever really been a classic good versus evil dynamic. Like, more often than not, the bad guy has a sad backstory. But in shonen, generally, they don't really give the backstory for this. I'm talking about in Western culture, how I grew up. But in anime, I heard that people aren't happy with sympathizing with the villains because, shonen is for kids, and that's why you have seinen that's more geared towards adults, because they don't want to embed their children with the values of, how these days, even in the West, I see people sympathizing with villains more than they sympathize in real life. I mean, sympathizing with criminals more than they sympathize with, your average person. That would raise the question, how did the first quirk ever manifest? Well, I see it maybe as, how evolution is a thing, and we're always, changing and evolving, adapting, whatever. I just think it's the next step of human evolution. Similar to how in a certain other show that I'm watching, energy put out into the universe manifests as something physical, and that is basically a transcended human in that show. But now, instead of creating something separate, in this show, they just manifest as better or stronger. Not stronger or better, no. It's just something more that is manifesting or developing or evolving. Oh yeah, that's true. Sorry. I think some people have wondered if we got an My Hero Academia Shippuden, if maybe it should be a seinen, so there would be less restriction on what Horikoshi could portray on panel. Is that what Shippuden is? Is it a seinen? I didn't know that. But that might have been smart, yeah. but they would have lost a lot of. I don't think a magazine would want to let go of something like My Hero Academia, you know? I don't know. I think shonen make more money in general. It's like McDonald's that has the toys, so to appeal to kids, so the kids go like, mommy, 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 I want McDonald's, I want the toy. It used to be a bigger thing, way bigger when I was a kid. And that is why families ate McDonald's more often than not, because, not more often than not, but I mean a lot of the times, because kids, the marketing targets the kids bother the parents give in and they go get McDonald's for the toy. So it's kind of like shonen being geared towards kids. It's just, there's a lot of money in kids, not gonna lie. Toys are freaking expensive. Have you guys walked through a Toys R Us? So I don't think that they would want to let it go as a seinen, because I'm just spitballing here. I agree. Shonen is just too marketable. Certain shonens would be much better if they grew up, but that's not the objective. The objective is to make money. Which is, on one hand, sad, but on the other hand, life. I mean, there are darker stories. If we want darker stories, we can go get darker stories. Hi, Nino! It's just that if something starts as a shonen, they're gonna hold on to it as a shonen. Capitalism wins again. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan of capitalism. I don't think I would be able to do anime reviews for a living if I wasn't a... The only other thing I know, capitalism and communism. I know I wouldn't be able to do anime reviews in a communist country, so. I'm pretty pro-capitalist, not gonna lie. Hey, what you doing? She's just lying there. All you can see is her butt. Are you stuck? Oh, guys, I wish you could see her freaking face. She's just lying like upside down looking at me like. Okay, now she's scratching. She was eyeballing you for a minute. Okay, so let me quickly score. Let me score the episode. I really wish I could put my reaction to this episode on YouTube, but there is no point in wasting time editing this because they will block it. I know it. I've tried 20 times to post My Hero Academia reviews. They do not allow me to do so. I don't know why. I'm gonna have to cut this in two. Oh, scores. Now you're scratching the bed? Huh? What you doing? Let me catch her. She ran. Reviews get blocked? No. Reactions. Reactions get blocked. I've tried so many times to post reactions. I wish you guys could see her. Did you see her run away? I literally just stood up to get her and she went like... Shadow is there in the box though. Let me show you. Oh, she just got up. Shadow! 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 Okay, never mind. She is in the box though. And there she goes. I took a nice picture of Nino last night. I can show you guys. Nino! How is Hanlu coming along? I will talk about that not in an anime review. So let me just quickly do the score. Seasonals, My Hero Academia. Oh my god. I don't think there's going to be time for Genshin tonight. Look how late it is. How did I get this late? 23. Story, I would say, you know, considering it's a shonen, you would want it to go deeper. You would want this to be 2 episodes, maybe even. Or at least the full episode, just Shigaraki's backstory. But I would say 9 for story again. 9.5 for characters. 8.5 for visuals. 8.8 for audio, and 9.5 for enjoyment / investment. Yeah, the OST was really good. The only thing that held me back from giving it a 9 is just, I guess I was too preoccupied with other things to really listen all that much. Modru says he gives the episode a 9. I give it a 9.1. Anyone else want to share their score? Anyone has any questions? Last minute questions? A 9 for me too. I like the stuff with Twice, even if there wasn't much of it. Oh yeah, true. Yeah, the first little bit of the episode was about Twice and the Gecko Man, which was good, but I was expecting, when I saw last week at the preview origin story, I expected the whole episode to be Shigaraki. So that was kind of like a surprise, but not a, more like just I don't want to say let down, but only because they could have gone so much darker with this, but they can't at the same time. Remember in which season was All Might versus All for One? I remember watching that by myself. I didn't have a reaction to that, and I remember like sitting on the edge of my seat and then jumping up. Like, do I remember that better in my mind? Because I compare everything to that. Was that the peak of My Hero Academia in terms of like visuals and hype? Like, the story is great. It's still phenomenal. Still just as good. But in terms of hype and visuals, maybe I'm making it more and better in my head than it was. I don't know. I need to rewatch. Tiago says anime as a whole 8.8 for me. Jazzy 8.9 for the episode. Nox says Twice and the massive utility of his quirk, a one-man hospital. Cherry 9 for me. It was a heavy episode and thus really good. I like seeing the backstories of the villains. Raf says, yeah, I was surprised they showed as much as they did with the puddles of flesh Tenko left behind. His sister. Yeah, there was like, yeah. That was freaking, I almost cried when the dog, why do I always cry when dogs die? I don't know. I almost cried there. When the dog freaking, his life faded away. Ah, so sad. Hated that. United States of Smash. Yes! Oh my god, that was like peak My Hero Academia for me. Deku vs. Overhaul climax was pretty great in terms of visuals. I don't remember that as much because the build-up for that wasn't that great. I don't know why I remember United States of Smash so much. It made such a big impression on me. I don't know why. That was the peak of the show for me, but I could be remembering wrong too. I see lots of people agree that season 3 was the best season adapted as a whole. Lord Cypher Adam says, I feel like Spinner is the least impressive member of the league. Well, you know, there's always going to be that one. For some reason, the hypest moment for me was the Endeavor moment at the end of season 4. Oh, that was really good. That was really good. Yeah. I forgot about that, but that was also really good. But still not United States of Smash. But you know what made that, like, the freaking All for One theme? I think that shit put it on a whole other level. Like, they have not been able to recreate the fear in my soul when I hear that song. Okay. But I'm going to end it here. I'll probably just upload this to Streamable and Google Drive. Then I'll ask if Mike has time. I'm not sure if you're here. Maybe you can cut out the review part and just upload that to YouTube and the reaction part to Dailymotion. I don't know. I'll try something like that. I like the school festival episode. I don't remember that. I don't remember a lot about the festival stuff because I wasn't a fan of Gentle. So I kind of checked out there emotionally. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know why. Quick question. Now that you aren't posting the One Piece reactions on YouTube, will you still have the screen faded? Yes, because at the end of the day, I could still get in trouble for sharing reactions. And I still need the insurance. If I have to defend myself in court, I can use the fact that it's faded. Hello, no one wants to watch anime like this. I'm not reposting the show. I'm not a pirate site. I am reacting to the show. People just need to see what I'm reacting to. And if I don't fade the screen, I lose that little piece of defense in my mind. I know I probably won't get taken to court, but you never know. And can we say that Twice and Togo would be a real power couple? I don't know. I think she's like 16 and he looks like 26. I don't know if I'm gonna go there. To be honest. So I'm not shipping anyone at this point in time except Deku and Uraraka, but also kind of Bakugo and Uraraka, but that's just headcanon. So that's just because I think that they would go so cute together, but I obviously know. Uraraka, Deku, end of story. But if Deku didn't exist, though, I would kind of ship Bakugo and Uraraka. I don't like them as a couple. He doesn't take a hit as well as the dude she likes. That's true. Okay. I'm gonna go now. Thank you guys for chatting with me. Not the Bakuraka ship. I know. People hate that. But, yes. Okay, thank you. And I'll see you next week for the next episode. Bye.